Haruki Murakami's collection, Men Without Women, offers a poignant exploration of male identity, loneliness, and the complexities of human relationships. First published in 2014, this work is a striking mixture of the surreal and the deeply introspective, typical of Murakami's narrative style. Through a series of 7 short stories, the collection delves into the psychological landscapes of men who grapple with loss, isolation, and the limits of understanding their own emotions. Murakami has always been fascinated by the intersection between the real and the surreal, often using elements of magical realism to reflect the inner lives of his characters. Men Without Women is no exception. In the stories, the men, who are often solitary and emotionally detached, find themselves in situations that blur the line between the ordinary and the extraordinary. While these men are depicted in situations of unfulfilled desire, emotional pain, and personal crisis, they are also often placed in bizarre, surreal circumstances that amplify their sense of isolation and emotional numbness. The title Men Without Women immediately suggests a theme of separation from women, but it is not just the absence of women that defines these men. It is also their internal emotional distance, the voids they experience in their lives. Murakami's men are often detached from their feelings and struggle to articulate their emotions. This estrangement is not solely from women, but from themselves as well. They exist in a kind of liminal space, both physically and emotionally distant from the world around them. Exploring solitude and emotional desolation. In the opening story, Drive My Car, the protagonist, Kafuku, is a stage actor whose wife, who died of cancer, had been his emotional anchor. Despite this loss, Kafuku continues to live in a state of emotional detachment, engaging with the world around him through a series of disconnected interactions. One of the most significant aspects of the story is Kafuku's relationship with his chauffeur, a young woman named Misaki. As they spend time together, Kafuku begins to confront the unresolved grief he has carried for years. Despite this, the relationship remains distant, a reminder of how hard it is for Murakami's men to engage fully with others, or with their own emotions. The theme of emotional detachment is also present in Yesterday, another standout story in the collection. The protagonist, who is unnamed, reflects on his past relationship with a woman named Junko. He is often distanced from the emotional reality of the relationships in his life, even when confronted with the heartbreak of separation. The narrator's estrangement from Junko is evident, and even as he acknowledges his role in the dissolution of the relationship, he remains largely unaffected by the emotional turmoil that others experience. This detachment highlights the central theme of the collection, the difficulty men have in expressing or understanding their feelings. In An Independent Organ, a well-established surgeon named Hirata struggles with his own physical and emotional isolation. Despite his success, he feels detached from the world and his relationships, particularly with women. His emotional disconnection is both a defense mechanism and a self-imposed prison. Hirata's romantic encounters are shallow, lacking the emotional depth that would provide him with a sense of connection. His inability to break through his own detachment makes his eventual downfall all the more tragic. The surreal and the real, a confluence of worlds. While the emotional isolation of Murakami's protagonists is a major focus of Men Without Women, the surreal elements of the stories are equally compelling. In many ways, the surreal acts as a metaphor for the disconnection that the men experience in their lives. Murakami is known for his ability to combine the everyday with the fantastical, and Men Without Women is no exception. In The Mirrored Room, a man who has recently gone through a painful breakup finds himself in a room that mirrors his own thoughts and memories. The story explores how the past continues to haunt the present, and how the line between reality and memory often blurs. In The Kidney-Shaped Stone That Moves Every Day, a man reflects on a strange encounter he had with a woman years ago. He is forever marked by this experience, and the bizarre, otherworldly events that occur in the story serve as a means to explore how the protagonist's past and his emotional state shape his present reality. Murakami's use of the surreal elements is not just for shock value, but serves to deepen the emotional impact of the stories, highlighting the protagonist's struggles to make sense of their lives. Another surreal moment comes in the form of a mysterious and magical encounter with a woman in the story A Shinagawa monkey. The narrator is summoned to meet a woman who is half human, half monkey, and is presented with the opportunity to resolve a lingering emotional issue in his life. The magical aspect of this encounter becomes a vehicle for the protagonist to confront his unresolved feelings of guilt and regret. It suggests that the men in Men Without Women are often trapped in their emotional worlds, unable to escape without some form of magical intervention. Masculinity. One of the key themes of Men Without Women is the exploration of masculinity and the emotional suppression that many men experience. Murakami's male protagonists are often portrayed as introspective and isolated, avoiding emotional confrontation at all costs. They appear to struggle with the cultural expectations of masculinity, which discourage them from expressing vulnerability or engaging deeply with their feelings. As a result, their relationships are shallow and their personal growth is stunted. This theme is most evident in Samsa in Love, a story in which a man wakes up one day to find that he has transformed into a giant insect. Despite his bizarre transformation, the man's focus is not on the physical change, but on his emotional disorientation. He is forced to confront his inability to express or even understand his emotions. His struggles with his identity and his relationships highlight the emotional void that many of Murakami's male characters experience. Masculinity is further explored in The Men Without Women, the titular story of the collection. The protagonist is a man who has recently suffered the loss of a woman he loved, and his sense of masculinity is intertwined with his grief. His attempts to fill the void left by the woman are futile, as he cannot seem to understand the depths of his emotions. His emotional numbness is a direct result of the social expectations placed on him as a man, further emphasizing the difficulties men face in dealing with their feelings: love, loss, and the inability to connect. At its core, Men Without Women is about the human experience of love and loss and the resulting emotional alienation. Murakami's men are often unable to connect with the people around them, especially women, in meaningful ways. The absence of women in their lives is not merely a physical absence, but also an emotional one. These men are struggling to understand their own emotions, let alone the complex emotional lives of those they love. The collection's closing story, Kino, reflects this theme of emotional isolation and the failure of men to connect. Kino, the protagonist, is a man who has just ended a relationship and finds himself at a crossroads. His attempts to forge new connections are fraught with confusion and self-doubt. Like many of Murakami's characters, Kino is in a constant state of searching for meaning, for connection, and ultimately for a way to understand his own emotions. This inability to connect is the ultimate expression of the solitude that defines the men in Men Without Women. Haruki Murakami's Men Without Women stands as a powerful exploration of loneliness, emotional detachment, and the difficulties of human connection. Through surreal, often fantastical stories, Murakami delves into the psyche of men who are emotionally isolated, offering a complex and nuanced portrayal of masculinity and emotional suppression. The men in this collection are not simply without women, but also without a deeper connection to their own emotions and to the world around them. Murakami's ability to balance the mundane and the surreal allows him to explore the human condition in ways that are both profound and accessible. The collection serves as a reminder of the complexities of love, loss, and the ongoing search for meaning in an often confusing world.